Welcome to Floyd Street's Finest. He is 93.9 The Ville's Mark Ennis. I am Jack Grossman. Thanks so much for tuning in. Floyd Street's Finest powered by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. Like, subscribe, follow, do all those things on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you're consuming this. Again, he is Mark Ennis at Mark Ennis on Twitter, host of The Drive at 93.9 The Ville, 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday. Mark, always enjoy catching up with you, man. How you been?
I'm doing great. It's been what an odd week. Really, I, it's really hard to describe how last night felt for all of like the smallest of things, like the trolliest of things, but like that's part of rivalry and part of like embittered at your ex kind of things. And so to have Kentucky get beat the way that they did last night and to have Kenny just look so, we'll talk about it, with Arkansas. I mean, the only way it could have been better is if they'd not gotten away with it and beaten Winthrop.
I mean, it
But
was the most. Like, I fell into the trap last night because that when
I turned
Winthrop
it on too.
yeah, I had it on at work, but I'm going Winthrop's gonna beat Arkansas. And how many times have we watched for the better part of 17 years now a Calipari team be battling one of these low major, mid major teams, look like they're gonna lose in November or December, and every once in a while they did. Yeah, they lost to Evansville, famously, but how many times have you sat there and they're not gonna win, and then they pull something out of their ass and find a way to escape? And my God, I fell for it again on Wednesday with
They had help. They had help. I mean, as bad of an example of like referee cowardice as you'll ever see. Uh, like if that was not a straight up home game for Arkansas, you can't tell me that they call that way.
it felt like the cousin Swapshire play.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's no way that they're just everything's offsetting and we're just gonna let them inbound it. Like that's not what happened. But overall, a truly bizarre night. And I would just if you were to try to like who's the person if you're like taking pride in kind of being the doing things the modern way and just embracing the fact that guys get paid now and all the and style of play, the pace and space and all this stuff. Like the the program that just sort of stands athwart that screaming halt is Michigan State and Tom Izzo. And so to sort of get pantsed the way that they did, I mean, it was the first time I've ever watched a team play the way that everyone used to play like 10 years ago. And it's like, oh, that looks old. Like the way that they do things offensively and stuff. I'm like, they look old and it's working. Like it would for Louisville fans, it would have been just as excruciating to have somebody sort of be like, I can still beat you with like the I formation, which is what that felt like. That's how
Yeah.
that game was. It was wild for me. It was just as bad of a night. Like you couldn't envision a worse night for another school that sort of tries to do things differently.
Well, and I'm glad we're starting here because even though, yes, this is Floyd Treat's Finest Louisville basketball podcast, I really, we were talking about it earlier today. What are we going to talk about? And I'm like, well, Arkansas and Kenny Payne, which for those who don't know, Arkansas almost lost to Winthrop on Wednesday night. They were down five with about 90 seconds left. Arkansas hits a bucket to go up one with what, 7, 8 seconds left. And then Nick Pringle, who has the go-ahead bucket, gets tangled up with Logan Duncombe, former Archie Miller recruit back in the day. Mark, um, he was tabbed as Indiana's big man of the future. He was not. He was very good for Winthrop last night, but not exactly Big Ten basketball. But they get tangled up. Pringle throws Duncombe to the floor. Everyone all hell kind of breaks loose. Everyone skirmishes onto the floor except for Kenny Payne, who's just sitting on the bench playing with
Yeah,
this program. Like,
to describe it for those who haven't seen it, it starts very zoomed in on Pringle and the scrum around him. And as people start to run towards this growing scrum of people, the camera is forced to sort of pan out. And it pans out to where you can see the crowd and the Arkansas bench because it happens on the Arkansas side of the floor because they just scored. And everyone is up and active. Literally every single person on the screen is standing up or heading towards the action, except for Kenny Payne straddling a stool on the sideline. And it just, if I told you, like if I use some AI video creating software to make the embodiment of like how it felt with him as the coach, like that was it. I mean, just everyone and just looking lethargic. And of course, the double irony, and this is how you know it's real because if you made this yourself, you're like, that's a little too on the nose for that to be real. But the idea of like the guy who just wore out calling for fight and demanding fight, just sitting on his ass while there is actually a fight, like it could not have been perfect, Jack. It couldn't
So
have been more.
great. I mean, and just all the other cast of characters too, like John Calipari's going berserk, Bruiser Flint's running onto the floor, Brad Calipari's running on the floor.
There's an old man Arkansas fan in either jeans or overalls standing right next to Kenny, 10 times more engaged than Kenny is. Like, because they're doing that thing now where you get floor seats. They've sort of,
Yeah.
everyone has kind of changed that first row. So they're like floor seats. This is a guy who's got season tickets right next to the bench. And he's on his feet, arm up, and Kenny just drinking it. Like you know what he looked like? He looked like a tennis umpire.
He did. He's just
Just
sitting in the chair.
yeah.
It needed to be elevated. It needed to be about 10, 15 feet off the
That's
ground.
it. That's it. Absolutely incredible. It was for it was look, they were either going to lose or that happened, and that was really, really funny. And it just, the I've the way I'm going to open the show today, like last night, we was kind of like we prayed for nights like these in the fun way that sports are fun, in watching your rivals struggle. But in all seriousness, Calipari never Louisville never made him squirm. Like not for one moment. Even when they lost, they still had lottery picks. Even when they lost a couple of games, while he was there with Rick, they still had very successful years for the most part. Like there was always more, and they got right back to it. They never lost a series of games or anything like that. And so, watching Kentucky struggle and watching Mark Pope do whatever he's doing, it is the sort of thing we're like, this is agonizing. How come they're never as off kilter as we are sometimes? And they are. Like that was messy, the way that they played. Basically, like that was the Louisville game again, except for they didn't miss 7 free throws down the stretch to let it get close. And then I listen, Mark Pope, he's the kind of coach that I like. Like I like good people, and I enjoy. I'm like, there's nothing objectionable about him. If you're a Louisville fan, there's nothing about him that like is off-putting, except for that he coaches Kentucky, and that when we don't really get to say that much in this rivalry, but there's nothing wrong with him at all as a person, and so I don't get that like enjoyment out of watching him struggle. But man, he looks like Chris Mack looked here. And I want to give my buddy JV Bell the credit for saying that last night. But the things that he's saying is how Chris Mack sounded after like 2 years here, where all of a sudden, like just like the never ending demand and like the first time these guys didn't respond the way that he expected them to, and the like the visible kind of crippling either realization or fear or whatever that like I may have picked the wrong guys or this isn't working, like the way I relate isn't getting through, is the sort of thing that you really only do when you're struggling. And we never got to see that before, and we are now, and it's odd. It truly is.
It is. And I mean, you look at how Mark Pope tried to build this Kentucky team. It was taking the information he got from last season, where Kentucky was a good team. They were a Sweet 16 team. They were really fun to watch. But everyone kind of knew their kryptonite and their ceiling of, okay, elite offense, they can't stop anything.
Yeah.
So what do? You go out in the portal, you get much more athletic, you try to get tougher, you try to get more physical. You did all the right things on paper, but now looking at the execution of it, you can't go get Mo Diabate, bring back Otega Owe, Bring in all of these dudes. Bring in Denzel Aberdeen, who has that championship mentality from Florida, which Aberdeen's actually been good, so he may be unfair to throw in there. But all this size, length, athleticism, and then get punked by Louisville, one of the best offenses in the country, and get absolutely manhandled by a Michigan State team that I guess is good again because I mean they've beaten Arkansas and Kentucky already for whatever's that worth. But I mean like Jackson Kohler isn't scaring anyone. Like
Right.
he's a good player, but he's not gonna scare anyone. Cohen Carr's an athletic freak, but he can't hit jumpers. And yes, Michigan State's not a good 3-point shooting team, but anyone we could hit some of the shots Michigan State was getting on
Yeah,
Wednesday night.
that's it would be wrong, I think, to sometimes you do this where it's like they shot out of their minds. And if you were a Kentucky fan who didn't really want to try to take any kind of responsibility for that game, you could try to persuade yourself that or calm yourself by saying like, hey, they shot 11 of 22 from three and they never do that. But we all watched that game and it's like it's Kentucky's fault they shot 11 of 22 from three. Like you uh, were not prepared and you were not mentally prepared for the how of playing, the effort level. And it was shocking, after the game to hear Otega Owe be like, it's our effort level, it's my effort level. Like we ought to be able to assume that.
Yeah,
That
I mean, always
option never.
been in college basketball, major college basketball for what 4 years now.
Well, and that I think is like the other alarming thing is you've got to evaluate guys like as players, but also as like as people and if they fit or not, and if you and they are like a good fit. And there's a lot of arranged marriages, in college basketball or college football. Like we see this, I think, with Louisville on Louisville's side with Miller Moss, where it's like you can get that one right, right? But the thing about this conversation is the guys that we're talking about kind of flopping for them, and that then flopped in the Louisville game, are the guys that were already there. This is Owe and Garrison, like these are guys who were doing nothing. And like they were there, they were in the program. So for them to sort of be doing this the way that they are now, it just looking so uh unwell.
Just
Uh
soft. They're
yeah,
soft right now, and
sure.
that is alarming within itself. But when you built the team specifically to not be soft, and then you're still this soft, that is that one that raises a ton of red flags on the Kentucky side, but two, it's created, as you said, this sort of juxtaposition where Mark Pope's sitting there and he sounds incredibly uncomfortable. He's saying, he had the whole thing about whatever the heck happened before the Louisville game, which I would love to know the story behind that. Um,
Okay, we got to talk about that.
all right, yeah, let's do it.
It's the first, I felt like it was like the first flinch of like his entire time there. And so much of like what he is as a person and his whole way of doing things uh, embodied a lot of what Kentucky always thinks of themselves as a fan base. And like he cares about them and he gets it. And like Calipari succeeded, but it was like, but I don't really like anything about this place, but we're succeeding. And like Kentucky fans, I think really enjoyed last year getting to re-embrace we care about the SEC and winning the SEC tournament and guys who might be here for more than a year. And this isn't just this is not a social program for changing generational wealth with families and all. Like they enjoyed it being about the basketball again and the basketball for them. They weren't a means to some other end, which is totally what Calipari does. Uh, and so it was easy. I think everything about him was refreshing. And the same was true for Pat here last year. Him being in love with everything that makes Louisville Louisville. Fans were like, hell yeah. So much so that you didn't beat Kentucky, you got beat in the first round. People were like, coach for life, right? Like it was so nice. So he never really had to deal with this sort of thing. But now, like you've lost the Louisville game, and the comments after the game, it was the first time I ever felt like he sort of miscalculated uh, what you should and can say publicly after a loss when you're clearly not happy with your guys. And it almost feels to me like now that he regretted it by the time he was finished saying it. And I don't think he really knows how to get out. And the fact like he came back to it after the Eastern Illinois game was like, I'm a Swifty and I like to keep it vague but it's really not that interesting. Like, man, you need to quit while you're behind because whatever it is, like it looks like you're the problem. And this mopey thing after the game yesterday was I've never like the Kentucky doesn't want their coach to look like that.
No.
And I say this sometimes. It was the biggest problem among a million that Kenny had is like it can't look like we care more than you do. Like
The
fans,
Scott Satterfield.
yeah, will not like. I don't need you having healthy boundaries. Like this needs to wreck you, like it's wrecking me. But it's the first time I've ever felt like a coach can do that too much, right? Like, okay, dude, get yourself together, right? Like we all got to go to work tomorrow too. Like you're not dead. It's I've never felt like a guy. Well, this hurts you too. This might be you might not be right for this. And I think it's worthwhile. I mean, I listened to Matt and KSR a little bit and some of their reactions to it. Like they're even unnerved. And it here's a hypothetical for you to sort of tie it back to Louisville. Would you would you rather have the successful year first and then these struggles, or would you rather have had the Louisville year where it was still successful, but you didn't really have like a big breakthrough, and now the breakthrough is coming in year two? Like he took his Pat's, I think, got the benefit of having kind of taken his lumps in a year that still made it feel like a big turnaround.
Well, I mean, it
And
also helps that, I mean, Kentucky, while not to Kentucky standards, was still single digit seeds
way
winning a
better,
bunch of
yeah.
games with Calipari, whereas
So,
Louisville won 12 games with Kenny. So I
yeah.
think it does make a little bit of a difference too.
But you took like now it was like, how are you going to build on that? And they're not like they're taking gigantic steps backwards. And interesting now, kind of interested in seeing like if the narrative will hold. Like the SEC's kind of gotten their butts kicked a lot. Like a year after being the best, like they were like unquestionably the best. They've gotten smoked often. Kentucky's gotten it twice already. You mentioned Arkansas lost to Michigan State as well. Houston beats Auburn. Like there've been a lot of those already that they almost ran the table in these games a year ago. Florida was lucky to get out of Florida State of all
Yep.
places with a win. A&M's already lost the game. Texas lost to Duke already. Like there's been a bunch of games that they virtually every meaningful kind of non-conference game of peers they won all of them a year ago, and they're far worse than a year ago. And the ACC's acquitting itself pretty well. Not as great as it could be, but you've got I think four teams probably emerging as legit in people's eyes, and you may get 6, 7 teams in the tournament right now. Only Boston College is really tripping over itself, which is no one cares, right?
Yeah. Just as long as Boston College doesn't, do what Louisville did to Clemson a couple years ago and beat someone who's on the
Right.
bubble.
But overall, I mean, for Louisville folks, like the Kentucky win is subjectively just awesome. Michael Brown living up to the hype has been awesome, and the ACC seems like it's doing its part, and is going to be a league that you can at least not have to apologize for, right out of the gate. And so I don't really know how this year could have started any better for that.
Right. I wouldn't call it a vintage ACC, but
Yeah.
I mean, the top of the league of Louisville and Duke, I'd put that top two up against pretty much anyone else that you can look at. I mean,
If you give me
excuse
Louisville,
me.
Duke, NC State, North Carolina, I'll
Yeah.
take that against anybody else's top four.
Yeah, I mean North Carolina's. I mean, obviously they got to get healthy with South Trimble now, but they looked fantastic against Kansas earlier in the year. NC State they struggled a little bit with VCU a couple nights ago, but I really love the pieces Will Wade's put together. I think that team's going to get better and better as the year goes on. I mean, those are four very legit second weekend teams, and I don't know if we can say that about the SEC right now. I mean, Alabama obviously had the big road win at St. John's. Yes, they lost to Purdue at home. They get a big one against Illinois on Wednesday night, but I love how NATO schedules. It's incredible. But other than that, I mean, I will say I went to the Auburn Houston game in Birmingham on Sunday, and that was a really fun game. I was honestly much more impressed with Auburn than I thought I'd be. Which, on a side note, Mark, the fact that that gets to be called a neutral site game is so bogus. I don't know if I saw 12 Houston fans in that arena.
Louisville's going to do one of those on Friday, right?
Yep, and which at least with that one though in Cincinnati, like it, Louisville fans will travel to that. It's a
Oh yeah.
very short distance. Like that will be more of a neutral site crowd to where okay, that makes sense. But if you're going to play a game, whether it be like if Louisville were to play or Kentucky's a good example, they play Gonzaga in Nashville this year. They're going to call that a neutral site game. I don't
Right.
know. Again, there'll be 12 Gonzaga fans in the crowd. Indiana and Purdue play these games, and I know IU plays Louisville this year, so that'll be much different than a normal game. But like Purdue played Auburn and Indy last year, and it's like that's not a neutral site game, guys. Indiana plays
I mean,
Miami, Ohio. Yeah,
Louisville, Indiana is in Annapolis. Is that's considered neutral site, right?
that is considered neutral site. Which again, that one makes more sense though because like Louisville will travel to that. That's not going to be 98% Indiana fans like some of these
Well,
other games are.
Like Cincinnati and Nebraska played football in Kansas City, and that was neutral site. Like, come on.
Yeah. Like, and that doesn't matter as much on the football side, but for college basketball and the net,
Like, then
that makes a big difference whether or not that's considered a home game or a neutral site game. And I'm kind of sick of teams gaming it a little bit. Like again, like Louisville's playing Cincinnati. That's kind of a neutral site, whatever. I'm excited for them to play in Freedom Hall next year just because I think that'll be really fun, nostalgic wise. But just seeing all these games in these random places, like Indiana will play Kentucky next year in Lucas Oil. They're calling that a neutral site. Like, guys, these aren't neutral site games. They're just not. Why are
no
we
one
doing
knows
that
what
here?
the net formula is. They just know how to game it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A big delay.
But back diatribe aside, like I think the ACC's a lot better. Like how deep they are, I think are legitimate questions. Miami looked fine against Florida for a little while the other day. Wake Forest almost knocked off Michigan. Michigan's been disappointing so far, but I think the ACC's positioning itself to where, especially up top, it's in a much better place, which only benefits Louisville as they are kind of the poster child of that.
I think there's a chance for there to be a respectable middle with Virginia, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, like those three in particular. We'll see about some others, Pitt, Clemson, maybe, but like if you told me right now at the end of the year that Louisville, North Carolina, Duke, NC State, uh, Virginia, Virginia Tech all made the NCAA tournament, I wouldn't be shocked, and that would probably be pretty good, for the league, and maybe one more, maybe Wake Forest,
Right.
like, maybe, but like that's leaps and bounds where we were, from a year ago, and I think that's all you could really ask for. And it would be kind of funny for Louisville to sort of bulk up in the non-conference in light of that, and then have the league get a whole lot better. But really, I mean, right now, that who cares? Your team's
Right.
good, right? Like, we'll play the games.
Right. And I think bulking up the non-conference really only helps you as a team. I mean, you can be a team like we talked about Alabama a couple minutes ago. 2 years ago, the year they made the Final Four, they were something, I think 6-5 at the end of non-conference. But even though they took their lumps, it didn't really hurt their metrics too much. Because again, you're losing to really good teams. Remember one of those games they lost to Purdue and Zach Edey up in Canada. Like, whatever, dude. That doesn't matter if you lose some of those games. But you take your lumps, you learn your lessons, you get better as a team, and guess what? March rolls around, and you're playing some of the best basketball of anyone in the country, non-UConn tier that year,
Right.
and they end up making a Final Four run. So I think if the league's better, Louisville bulking up on their non-conference is still going to be incredibly helpful in the long run if they're able to win a majority of these games. Looking at really, to be honest, I'm because they should beat Cincinnati. They should beat Memphis, who lost to UNLV by 14 the other night at home in the Josh Pastner Bowl. But so they should win those two kind of regional rivalry games. Indiana, I think they should beat. Um, you're looking at Arkansas, at Tennessee. If you can get one of those two, you're really positioning yourself now to where if you can win a couple of those big games in ACC play, you have a great chance of ending up on the top couple seed lines.
Yeah, if you let's just say you split Arkansas and Tennessee, uh, and maybe drop one of Indiana, Cincinnati, Memphis, maybe. Like, that's a great non-conference season. And they might be able to win all of those. They might win all of those. Then, yeah, you're looking at that being a tremendous boost, and the ACC just not being a giant anchor.
Right.
Because, like, there really is a big difference between these teams maybe not necessarily being tournament teams and them being putrid, which several of them were, last year. And I think that might, like, that's not exciting, right? That doesn't make for great programming, but like it can be the difference in seed lines if the non-tournament teams that you beat and beat well aren't in the 200s. in conference. And I think the ACC it looks like that. I mean, Boston College doesn't look good. Uh, Georgia
Georgia
Tech
Tech
doesn't,
doesn't look good.
but everybody else has got a pulse. At least has a pulse.
Yeah, why does that matter? I mean, you look at it. I look at St. John's last year, for example. They went 32-4 in the regular season. They were fantastic. But the Big East wasn't great last year. It's worse this year, by the way. It's sad to see the current state of Big East basketball outside of UConn and St. John's. It really is. Georgetown's not bad, but outside of that, it's been what the ACC's been the last couple of years. That's where the Big East is right now. It's unfortunate for someone, Louisville fans, even though Louisville's out of the Big East anymore. There's still just that nostalgia level for Big East basketball. But St. John's with 32-4 last year and got a 2 seed.
Right. Right.
Why? Because they were going up against Florida and Auburn and the SEC teams for the most part. And it was, yeah, you're really damn good, but you just don't have the resumes that these other teams that are also incredibly elite have. And that ends up mattering because you end up drawing Arkansas in the second round instead of an 8-9 game, and Arkansas beats you. So that type of stuff does matter, even if you're able to do a lot of work in the non-conference, unless, of course, you're like a Duke level last season where you were so head and above
So
everyone
good. They
else.
transcended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Memphis
Which
football.
Louisville might be that. We don't know. They've looked fantastic so far.
And we can, sort of turn it back to Louisville at this point. Like, I think the most exciting part about this exactly is, they've had season low 96 points against Kentucky. So you scored north of 103 out of the 4 games, but they don't look like 3-point shot addicted, right? Like when it's the best shot, they take it, but they do other things.
Other than the Bucknell game, that which is an exhibition at this point, but yeah,
But also, like, you can't help but watch them and think, like, there's still a long way to go. Like, there's still a lot of things that they can do better and figure out. You've only played 2 of these games with Case and Pryor back. And I think it's fair to say, like, it's not really clear, like, what Case and Pryor's role will be. It's not really clear what Kenai Ruth's role will really be, and how, if they'll be successful in keeping that rotation as large as it is all year. We got a little taste of it with Kentucky where, Pryor played a minute, 2 minutes, and Zugers didn't play at all. He's a luxury guy they're going to bring along here and there, but, like, what's this rotation really going to look like? And who can maybe give them different challenges? I thought Ohio tried to kind of beat them up a little bit, and it didn't work at all. Like, I think that they're okay playing that game. And so, a year ago, there were teams, I think, long athletic teams like Duke and some others, Ole Miss, like they could just switch everything and cover them up because they weren't super athletic.
Tennessee.
Yeah, you can't do that. Like, that's not going to work this year. And so it's been fun, I think, for everybody here to just sort of see this is what they were going for in the offseason, and then it just be there. Like, it just, yeah, we properly evaluated the guys to bring in and bring back to create a certain kind of style of play, and they're really good at playing it. And so far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, you said bringing back. I mean, Javon Hadley's kind of the name that pops out there.
And
How
not
he
James
fits in.
Scott, by
Yeah,
the way, not James Scott.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I
Fruits.
don't know where he fits on this team.
I think he could have played the Fruit role, if that makes sense.
I
But
like Drew better in that role, though.
yeah, I mean, they took the gamble on Fru, and it's looked a little sketchy like the exhibition season or whatever, but he was huge in the Kentucky game. He was good again against Ohio. He's really coming into his own, man. He's
He
giving them
might
an
be
element.
like the best example of what I'm talking about, where it's like he's doing the basics right now. And, like, when stuff becomes a little bit more instinctive, for him, and he's doing a little bit less thinking and gets to, like, on the same page with everybody and kind of anticipates the way that, these guys play and what's expected of him. Because I think even Pat's talked about, like, what he what he was asked to do in Germany was very rigid. And he did it with, like, he was definitive. And now it's a little bit more, you got to real. It's like I've said this on the show before, like the old run and shoot offense in football. It used to be a lot of option routes, where like the quarterback has to read the defense, the wide receiver has to read the defense, and they got to read it the same way. And so you're not calling a lot of routes. It's let's just see what they do, and you go where it ain't. They ain't, and it's a lot of that, and that's new for Frew. And he's already, I think, kind of picking a little bit of it up. And so by the end of the year, like it's not hard to envision him being a real problem
Yeah,
for
I
people.
think the key thing I think of that, I mean, a perfect example of it was in the Kentucky game early in the second half. He short rolls, they get him the ball, and first of all, he made the decision to short roll instead of dive hard to the rim, which is what he normally likes to do. He gets the ball, reads the defense, sees Mo Diabate is hesitating a little bit, going, "Do I want to get out on Hadley? Do I want to come over to you?" And he's like, "Oh, I see the indecision." Quick pass to Hadley, drills a three before Diabate can recover. Just decisions like that you have to be able to make all the time. And Frew's getting more and more comfortable with that. And the more he makes the right decisions, the more confidence it's going to build. And especially a game like Kentucky is just so big on so many levels for a guy like him because yes, you can go out there and prove like Connie Roots had a great first week, first couple of games. Didn't do nearly as much against Kentucky. That's fine. That's the next big step for him. He needs to prove consistency and be able to do it against the best. But for Frew to have that, not just be effective against the low majors, but to go out and do it against Kentucky in the rivalry game and all that stuff, that is such a confidence builder for him going into the Tennessees, the Arkansas, the Indianas, the Cincinnatis, all these other games in ACC play.
And I still don't really know where Case and Pryor and Kenai Roots really are fit and like what the optimal role for them is. Uh, but either way, it's complementary. Like you've got five guards that are really good. Like all five of them are really good, and they're all a little bit different. But you don't them switching out and subbing out. You don't really lose anything with them in stretches, and they help in other ways. And like they never have to slow down back there. You know, Rogers comes in and has a tremendous like and one, you know, at the rim in the Kentucky game. And McNeely, you know, all these guys, Woolley, all these guys like just catching uh like dribble handoffs at the top of the key and just sort of reading what the defense does. All right, I'm just going to let it flip. Like Woolley, like you know, he's the bulliest of them all, you know, physically. But like that's the thing. Like you got to run around and run around and run around with Michael Brown and Conwell and McNeely all the time, and then he comes in and he just beats your ass. You know, and like there's no rest, there's no relaxation from any of these guys, and that's exactly how they designed it. And then the minute you start trying to like overcompensate for them is when every one of these front court guys is supposed to sort of take over in a complementary role, and they can all do that too. Like it's a well, this is 2 years where Pat's really like you look at it and like the design of what you're going for and the people you brought in to do it. It can't have anything but confidence. And like these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah, it makes sense. It just absolutely makes sense. And you know, you had the plan, you executed the plan. Now we're seeing the results of it. Of it's just so much fun to watch. The other thing is just how willing of a passing team this is. I mean, you look at it, Ohio, I thought did a good job of like trying to take away back cuts and all that stuff, which is really what Khalifa loves to hit. But there were still multiple times in that game where it's like, okay, Conwell's cutting a diagonal cut from the wing, and Khalifa's able to find him. Like, how did he squeeze that into that window? That's incredibly
Frozen
tough.
open like in a football way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. And look, that's the psychological part of being of coaching is like getting these guys to believe that like you'll all benefit when you're all unselfish like together. And that can't be easy. And I think Kentucky's dealing with that. Like they don't play that way. And I think Mark Pope wants to play that way, but like I listened to the CBS guys and Field 68 guys that were all talking about how like you watched them play against Michigan State last night, and it's like you got guys who are like, it's my turn, you know, a lot. And that's not what he's going for. And to Pat's credit, like this is back-to-back years so far that there's not a whiff of that with this group.
There's not. I mean, it honestly, it feels like a little bit Mike Woodson-esque watching Kentucky play offense with the way that people just got to go turn for turn with that there. But I mean, it's just awesome to watch with Louisville. And the tough thing is for opponents, anyways. I've talked about this before. is just you can't take everything away on the offensive end.
Yeah.
If you take away the 3-point shooting, they'll kill you with back cuts. Brown and Conwell can beat you off the dribble. If you try to take away driving lanes, they're going to kill you from three. They're going to play with pace. If you're able to slow them down, Pat Kelsey is great at drawing up stuff in the half court, and they're really going to make you move and work defensively and be incredibly disciplined and just looking for any type of slip up that they're going to take advantage of. It's just I don't know if there's a harder team to guard in college basketball than Louisville with how
Yeah.
multifaceted, how effective, and the pace they play with offensively.
Yeah, and like making you kind of prepare to play a bunch of different ways, because you mentioned it. Like Khalifa comes in and like they're gonna do different things when he's in. And when Hadley's in, he's gonna be kind of a stretchy kind of wing, but like he's gonna back whoever if you put a smaller guy on him to stay in front of him, like he's gonna back that guy down.
Saw that a bunch last year.
Yeah, and like that's the thing is like I think they make you prepare for like two and a half teams because you have enough variable skill among all these different guys and styles of play that it's got to be a nightmare. And who has that kind of shooting on their own roster? Like I used to talk about this all the time with when Paul Johnson was at Georgia Tech and they ran the option. It was like, how do they practice for other people? When your wide receivers can block and your quarterback's a running back, like how the hell do you practice for somebody else's offense, right? And people don't have the ability. I don't not very many teams have the ability to sort of prepare for the magnitude of sort of what Louisville throws at you. And so really the sky's the limit for this team.
It really is, and I mean I put them right up there with the Purdue Houston group, which
Yeah.
which I honestly I thought I kind of had Louisville in that second tier preseason, but I mean they've shown enough so far. And yes, I'm putting stock in that Kentucky game because that's the one game of note they've played during the regular season so far. But you just watch everything; it works so well. It's like this will translate to pretty much anyone you're going to play against, and that's why the fact that you said you have to prepare for 2.5 teams pretty much. That's why I don't think the rotation is going to shrink all that much. Maybe on a game by game basis, like you play at Tennessee, you might see more Cason Pryor and Kenai Roos because you
Yeah.
need to match that physicality. But then uh, an NC State who's a little bit smaller, and it's like, okay, you're gonna be rolling with Khalifa and Hadley a lot more. You have to be able to keep everyone engaged. I will say the the thing about the Louisville Kentucky game being so early, it kind of forced both PK and Pope to show their hands a little bit more than you normally would early this season. If you're playing a real big game, you're early in the year, you're usually keeping the rotation fairly what it's spinning into the low majors, trying to keep everyone involved, all that. You can't do that in the Louisville Kentucky rivalry game.
Yeah.
And we saw that where Zugris basically didn't see the floor. and in that game where it's like, okay, and Pryor plays too, but it's like, okay, Pat, you're showing your hand a little bit here of what we might see down the stretch because you can't mess around with the Louisville Kentucky game to where maybe at least in this game, this is where we're gonna go. Like Zugris has a long way to go. Pryor's still coming back from the injury. We're playing Kentucky. Sorry, guys. You all can play against Ohio. We're not doing this in the Kentucky game. But I do think for the most part, though, they're going to keep playing that not just so they can be multifaceted, but because everything we talk about, what makes Louisville so effective, the speed, the pace, trying to wear other teams down. Part of what makes that work is that Louisville's playing more dudes than the other team.
And they're all one and a half guys. Like they can all do things. Rick famously when he was here was like, we're gonna make the goal of like the press was like we're gonna make a big guy handle the ball. And now like you can't Louisville's big guys can handle the ball for the most part. Like you're not petrified of them dribbling for what's needed to break a press. And I'm like, I don't even think they think twice about it. It's not, and they get like when you're not pressing, like they get an offensive rebound, they just go. They're not trying to wait and see like somebody take this from me. Like they just freaking go. And that's exhausting, I think, for the other team. And I think, when Pryor is fully like back and feels like himself, uh, his ability, like when they do that stuff with the big guy at the top of the key and everybody's outside the 3-point line, like his ability to take guys off the dribble is like we only got pieces of it last year, but like that's another component you can add to the offense.
It is. I don't know how much. Like for me, Pryor's role is interesting because I think he's needs to play close to what Frew does. I think that kind of needs to be more of his role. I think if you're playing against Louisville and you're giving me the options of Brown and combo off the dribble, giving up a 3-point shot, or Case and Breyer trying to break someone down from the top of the key, I know which one I'm choosing in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like Case and Breyer can do that, but for me, his role needs to be more rim running, rebounding, effort, defense. If he's initiating offense, like Khalifa can initiate offense because he might be the best passing big man in college basketball. Pryor can do that, but one, I don't think that's his biggest strength, and two, everything else you do as an offense is more effective than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want him initiating offense, but like there are, you've watched it, like there
Yeah,
are times where like teams switch and he ends up with somebody on him. Like I'm taking this guy off the dribble, and that'll be the right thing to do. And like, yeah, I don't want them running that play, but when it's the right thing to do, it's just like another thing that you're
it
not
is. Yeah.
that's not easy to guard. Look, Cincinnati this weekend, like that'll be interesting. They are by far the best defensive team Louisville will have faced. Uh, our old friend Kirk Kriisa again.
Is he actually going to play this time?
I mean, we'll see, right?
I feel like he's usually hurt when they match up. At least
True.
he was
But
last
like
year.
I think Ken Palm right now, they're number two
Yeah.
in defense efficiency and lots of green on the defensive side. Uh, that'll be a good test for Louisville if they can. It's the first game, away from home. If they, I'll be interested in seeing what Cincinnati does. What do they try to do? Do you try to just really stubbornly slow it down? Because I don't think they want to get up and down with Louisville at all. Offensively, they're not built for that, and not very many teams are. But it'll be a good, interesting kind of test for Louisville to play without the crowd, like they have, up to this point, and a team that, like, if you screw around, like, you can get yourself into some trouble. Uh, and can they do this thing, which I think they do by design? Like, their offense is part of their defense. Like, you can't tell me that Kentucky ever wants Otega Owe to shoot six threes, right? Like, that's not
Right.
his game. But because everyone around him on the other team is jacking threes and making them, like, I think he just kind of gets duped into doing it. And I think they do that to teams where it's like, we got to keep up. Getting twos is not going to cut it. And all of a sudden you sort of force teams to just sort of play where they don't want to play. And I think that would be disastrous for Cincinnati.
It would be. Cincinnati's interesting. Well, I agree with you. I think they do need to slow the game down. First of all, easier said than done. I remember previewing the Louisville Kentucky game. One of the things Dan Issel said was the best way for Kentucky to slow down the game, which of course Kentucky made no effort to slow down the game, which that's a very perplexing decision by Mark Pope, to be honest. But the way for Kentucky to slow down the game is by making shots.
Yeah.
Even when they made shots, Louisville was getting out in transition. It didn't matter, it reminded me, honestly, remember when Louisville played Carolina in the 2008 Elite Eight? And Louisville, obviously, like Terrence Williams, Earl Clark, that team, they played fast. They liked to play fast. But North Carolina with Hansbrough, Ty Lawson, Wayne Ellington, Danny Green, that's what they did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we get it.
Didn't speed
Louisville,
them up. Now we're already speeding.
yeah, we're already speed, and you trying to play fast is just going to feed into what we want to do. That's honestly kind of what Louisville, Kentucky ended up feeling like. Kentucky, like they like to play fast. That's what they want to do. But that's what Louisville does, and that was just huge. But I bring all that up because Cincinnati, I agree with you. Cincinnati does need to slow the game down. However, they're the fourth offensively. They're the 14th fastest team in the country in terms of possession length, which is interesting. Now, defensively, they do slow it down more, so it's an interesting dichotomy there. I think Wes Miller's going to have to slow the game down for them to have a chance, though, because I don't know if anyone in the country has the athletes to slow down a Louisville team if you get in a track meet. That's I think the one thing you can't do if you're playing Louisville. So I'm with you. Cincinnati has to slow the game down
But
there.
like this discussion that we're having though is interesting to note. Like Louisville's just their personnel and style of play and like the marriage of the two. How many times this year are teams who have a certain way that they would prefer to play going to have to just look in the mirror and be like, we can't be us this week? And that's not to say that teams can't win that way. There are plenty of times, the Rockies, like, I'm a southpaw, right? Like this is we gotta play a different way. It's our only way to win. But it like Louisville's going to spend a lot of this year playing teams that are just going to be, we can't do what we normally do, and that's a great place to be. Where
Yeah.
a team's like, we're gonna have to be somebody else if we're gonna win this game. I'd love to play a bunch of games where the other team is like, we have to impersonate somebody else if we're gonna have a chance to win this game. Like that's where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dictating and you're forcing teams to try to change how they want, that's when you know you have a really damn good basketball team through Louisville's at. Before we get out of here, Mark, I want to ask you about this.
They should bench Miller Moss. No, that's
Oh,
not it.
yes, they should, but that
Okay,
was what I was
okay,
going to say. But
wasn't it? Okay,
yes, yeah.
okay.
Louisville Cincinnati. It's the first time they played. I guess since Maui, but a couple years ago during KP's first year, we whatever. But the first time they the first time they've really played since 2014, which was the game where Russ Smith hit the buzzer beater in
Yeah,
Cincinnati. Louisville, Kentucky, obviously, as it should, gets every headline possible locally. Everything in Kentuckiana is driven around the Louisville Kentucky rivalry. But Louisville Cincinnati, that's one for I remember growing up, it was still heated, it was still what it was. But back in the heyday, the Cincinnati and Memphis games
yeah.
before Louisville played Kentucky every year, those were the games, and still up until Louisville left the Big East or I guess the AAC, those were still incredibly important games. I remember growing up in my childhood to get both those back on the schedule. What does that mean for Louisville? I want to see it more. I know they're playing, the next couple of years, but just to get those regional rivalries back, Indiana to a different degree, also getting that back on the schedule too. But especially Memphis and Cincinnati, getting those two games back. What does that mean for Louisville, the program, and the fan base?
Well, look, I think it's great. I think it shows some insight on Pat's part of like the things that matter, to people. And I think he spent a lot of time at places who don't have those things. And the more I've like just sort of thought about him and watched him, like he spent a lot of time at places where he had to persuade people to care about games and to have a place where like if I schedule these teams, everyone is freaking in. Like I don't have to persuade anyone at Louisville to care about this game. But really, when you think about it, like the reason or a big part of like the reason that those games had a character is like Cincinnati players, like they were a thing. Like you like a Cincinnati kind of guy. You knew what kind of team Bob Huggins would have or Mick Cronin would have, and they weren't a lot different really. Like you were going to have ogre kind of guys, and it was going to be a rough and tumble game, and like you as a fan would prepare for getting fouled way more and it not getting called. And you would know. And Memphis, it's going to be a nightmare in that building. Somebody's going to throw a switchblade on the floor. Like, the stories. But like those teams had a character, their coaches had a character, the games had a character. And that is the part that's still, I think, kind of missing. So it'll still be Cincinnati, but like, what's a Wes Miller player?
Right.
That
What
so
what
like
what what's a Penny Hardaway player?
right, right. That's the part that I think is kind of missing. But like to the extent that they sort of bring that sort of thing back, I think it's great. It's a chance to little like every elite team, every top whatever team in college basketball, like on a name like programs, like loves these opportunities to everybody load up and go somewhere else. Like road opportunities for a lot of us. Like there aren't that many of them, but for blue blood kind of fan bases, there are. And this is one of them. Memphis is one of them. Kentucky's one of them to a lesser extent. Like you look forward to being able to take it on the road, like as a fan base. And there's like as a fan, sort of watching it from home, like there's nothing better than being able to hear like the Cards chant like on TV, right? And that sort of thing. And this is a chance for one of those for sure.
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up, kind of the mystique around, especially Cincinnati. I remember I was at that 2014 game. And other than the actual game itself, which was fantastic, like again, Louisville wins the game on a Russ Smith buzzer beater. The two
Yeah.
things that stuck out in my head were one, there was a piece of glass in the burger I bought, which wasn't great. and and two, there was a couple in front of me that got into a big ass fight, and the woman pulled a knife on the dude,
Wow.
and and
That's
they
what I'm
got
talking
ejected.
about.
Yeah, I'm like, well, they were. That's Louisville, Cincinnati. That's Louisville, Memphis. You think about people throwing quarters on the floor back in the day when Teddy Crum was coaching. It's a lot of fun to have those games. It does. I'm with you. It feels different with, I guess, with how much time's passed. And I guess, at least for me, like Louisville, Cincinnati, Louisville, Memphis, those were still heated when I was growing up, but it wasn't the heyday of it. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's like a generational thing on my end, but it is just a level of Louisville should be playing Cincinnati every year. Louisville should be playing Memphis every year. Those games are just incredibly fun. They're, it gets, all the fields, all the banging, all that stuff, like you said. And yeah, that makes a lot more sense for Louisville to play that game than for them to go out and play Oklahoma State.
Yes.
Like Cincinnati and Memphis aren't prototypical historically great Cincinnati or Memphis teams, but it just brings so much more excitement to have that element in there that it does to play again, like in Oklahoma State or a Washington or a Rutgers. It just,
Or even like Baylor that they're playing
yeah,
this year. That doesn't mean the same thing. And there's something for uh I don't know how much time we ever spend intentionally thinking about like how you pass fandom along like generation to generation. But one of those things that you do, and it's one of the reasons that I think conference realignment sucks,
yeah.
is my grandpa hated Memphis too. And my dad hated Memphis, and now I hate Memphis. And to not have those games and not have like those kinds of experiences where it's like we're all we've been Memphis State, fuck those guys, right? Like and we think and we've been feeling that way in this family for 50 years. Like there aren't many of those, and Louisville's I think kind of transient movement from conference over through conferences over the years hasn't allowed for as much of that as they've needed.
You mean you don't hate Boston College with a
Right.
burning passion?
I don't know what it would take for me to hate Boston College right at this point.
I mean,
Okay.
the ACC told us that SMU's the rival.
Yeah, they told us Virginia was like I hate that stuff. Oh God. It's but like that's the thing that binds like generations of fans together is like it's our turn to hate them. You grow up and now it's like I'm the adult and I'm gonna take my kid to the Memphis game. We hate these guys. My dad used to call them what I'm like that's the beauty of these games. And that's what unfortunately it feels like that's what people in charge in college athletics just do not get. For USC, for instance, to have their president saying, yeah, we want to play Notre Dame, but we really want to make the college football playoff. To hell with that, right? Like I want my turn of hating Notre Dame and playing them
Right.
when it matters, like everyone else got. I thought that was what we did. And rivalry games are not means to an end; they are an end. Period. Play the games.
Right. And that's why, even though you played it on November 11th, that Louisville, Kentucky, that's why, sorry, Zugris, that I'm picking on the kid, but that's why Zugris and Case and Pryor don't play in that game.
There
Because,
was right. You were there was no long-term benefit to balance against those guys playing. We have to win the game. And there's no if you don't think I'm right, just I think you would agree with me on this. There are there's a there are thousands of Ohio State fans who would give back the national championship to have not lost to Michigan last year. There are.
yeah,
Like
I mean,
that's wild.
there's the classic, the shirt in 1998, Kentucky, first in the country, second in the state.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are.
and I do hope it does seem like college basketball is doing a little bit of a better job. Again, Louisville's the poster child of it. Look at their non-conference schedule this year. You got
Yeah.
Kentucky, Memphis, Indiana, Cincinnati, and Tennessee on it.
Perfect.
That's perfect. That's what you
Yep.
should do. Then you throw in,
Maybe play Western, maybe play Butler or Ohio State or something, but like,
yeah,
yeah, that's exactly what they
yeah.
should be doing.
West Virginia would be a fun one. Marquette. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, like those are the types of schools you should be playing. I mean, we have the Indiana Kentucky series back now, which took 15 years off because of just complete idiotic pettiness, which we don't need to dive deep into that. But like these games should be played. Like, guys, like, why is even on a conference level, Louisville and Notre Dame in the Big East?
Yeah.
They had something there.
Yeah.
what was it, like 8 of 14 games or something stupid like that went to overtime. Those games were great. You looked forward to whatever
Right.
wacky nonsense was going to happen in those games. How the ACC couldn't figure it out to put Louisville and Notre Dame and have them play twice a year. Because the moment, not going to lie, the Louisville Notre Dame thing, the moment's kind of gone now.
Yeah.
I mean, Notre Dame's not as good as they used to be, and that's the main reason, and that's a big reason for it as well. But Louisville's 1 year gap of being in the American and not playing Notre Dame that year because Notre Dame already jumped to the ACC, that should not have broken a decade long thing those two programs had going. But because the administrators don't really give a crap, to be honest, about that type of stuff, which is unfortunate because we're sitting here in a world with the commentary line. We're sitting here in a world where we just had to sit through 2 weeks of Disney and Google battling out over
In the
the
end,
yeah
we can. In the end, like decision makers don't know why we watch.
yeah
That's really what it
and
comes.
yeah, and it's unfortunate, but good on Pat Kelsey for at least getting some of that back the way he's scheduled this year. Louisville, Cincinnati going to be Friday night. Mark, I do expect Louisville to be able to take care of business. Cincinnati, as you said, very, very good defensively. They got some good players. Kirk Reese, about Bob Miller. Love that name. I and they're fine. I mean, but I mean, Louisville has more talent. They have more athleticism. I think it's going to be much
They
closer.
could lose if they go down there and don't take that game seriously.
I would
Uh,
expect them to take that game
I think
seriously, though.
first road game, Cincinnati, it'll still be a Louisville crowd there. And the thing with this team is, I don't really get the sense that they care who they're playing at all. Uh, and the three non-Kentucky games, I think, kind of show that it's like no mercy, and no one wants to be the one that comes in and lets it slip. And like that's the best Patino teams here, like they always made me feel like that. And so I expect them to play Cincinnati the same way. And look, they might muck it up a little bit early, but it's hard for me to imagine them being able to keep up.
Yep. Agreed. It could be a type of game where you're competitive for a half, maybe
Yeah.
25 minutes, but eventually I think Louisville's just going to have the depth and the speed and everything to be able to win fairly easily. But Mark, appreciate the time as always, man. Again, you can listen to Mark Ennis on the drive on 93.9 The Ville, 3 to 6 p.m. every single weekday. We'll be back next week on Floyd Treats Finest again.